fiction. A couple of people have requested this, and yeah, it's going to be a good one. So let's take a listen to the No Frills acoustic version and see what he's up to. Okay, so first the chords. Real simple here. We're in G major and we're starting on the 5, so we have a D, no third in the D, okay? So we're actually, in the intro bit here, we're not going to play anything on the high E. D to a C add 9. We can call it a C9 if you want, but technically it's an add 9. And a G. So it sounds like this. Now, of course, there's a lot more going on, but that's the general idea. So what he's doing here is he's using hybrid picking. So there's a very simple kind of not a pattern, but an easy way we can sort of outline this. Your ring and middle finger will always stay on the B and G strings. All right, so your ring finger on B, middle finger on G. Those two fingers will not play any other strings in this pattern, okay? And the high E string is not used. So you're going to use those two fingers always for those two strings, all right? The pick is going to take care of the the low 3, E, A, and D when needed. So you're always going to have some kind of combination of a picked note and a plucked note. If you're not familiar with hybrid picking, the best thing to do is just make a D chord and just pick the D and then pluck the G and B in order. Practice that, and then when you've got that down, alternate between the A and the D string with the pick. When you can do that, what you want to do then is do A, D, and then switch to the C9 chord, pick the C note, and then the E note underneath it. So it's the same pattern, just changing chords. Alright, so that's a good practice routine for those of you who've never done hybrid picking before. So the song itself then, I'm going to play what he does slowly, and then we'll build it up to speed, all right? So the song starts on a D5 chord here, with the same idea, picked D, plucked G and B strings. But then you have that little bit, which is a plucked open G string, a picked F sharp on the D, release that, and then pluck the G string again. So you get. Now you can't let that F sharp ring, okay? You've got to let that off, otherwise you get this. And it sounds really terrible. So. Then you make a C chord. You hit that pick the C note and pluck the G and B, but this time you have an open string on the G. So really that finger kind of just stays here, right? You can think of it kind of as an anchor. All right, so all together, and the tab of course you can see is on the screen. So just practice that as many times as you need to. So those two chords are repeated 3 times. But there's a little intermediate little lick that he does. So out of that C, there's that little lick, which is pick on the open D, hammer on to the E, and then pluck this G underneath it. So you get this. You can hear it slowly coming together, right? So the way I'm showing you this is how I would recommend that you sequentially build up to learning the whole intro, right? The first 1 minute of the song uses this hybrid picking technique. So take it slowly, all right? You got to take it slowly here. So after that, then you go back so after that lick there, you've hit that open G, you bring that finger down to the A note here, and then D, G, B strings. So that's the trick, is getting that. All right. So you got to build it up to speed. So that's your first, let's call it so-called assignment here, is to build up on that. And that's going to happen 3 times. And then we're going to play this. All right. So there, after the 3rd time around on that intro lick, now, what makes this appear so difficult is that there's always those underlying plucked notes going on. So it sounds very busy, right? And it is, there's a lot happening here. But once you realize and practice that these 2 fingers never deviate from these strings, just getting that pick part right will bring this whole thing together rather quickly for you, okay? So here then, out of that 3rd lick on that, we'll start on the D. You go back to the C now, pluck twice, as we do usually, and then we hammer onto our E note as usual. So the whole thing starts as normal. 3rd time. And then you hammer, pluck on the D, pick the G, pluck the G and B, hammer down like that on the open A to the B, pluck once on the B string, pick the C note, and then pluck twice there. So let's repeat that. I'll do this very slowly. So the tricky thing there is to pluck once versus pluck twice. So watch. Basically, anytime you're playing this note, or anytime you're playing this note or this note here, it's a pick once afterwards. It's like, but when it's the C or the G, it's always twice. So one more time. And just work that up to speed. All right. So that's the first minute, or the first minute of the song, excuse me, is all hybrid picking, and that part right there is the intro and it's also the, let's say, the verse. All right, so we have a change here to the chorus. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction, and I must believe what I see. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction to me. Sorry about that little mess up there. So out of that last C in the verse, we have a walk down on the B note to the A minor 7, G over B, C9, add 9, D, A minor, G over B, C, D. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction to me. All right, so it's real simple stuff in terms of the chords. But the picking you're going to see here is quite different. So I'd like you to just listen to this without me playing over it and just listen to the picking here. Let me see if I can find the right spot.
Ridiculous and sit around waiting for Porky to fly. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction, and I must believe what I see. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction to me.
All right. So you can hear there are some similarities here, but there's also a big difference in this part. So we end the verse on that C, one pick on that B note brings us down to the A minor 7. So there's a double sort of thing happening here, and it's the same pattern for each chord. Well, the first 3 chords, it's sort of the same pattern. You pick the open A, pluck the G, B, and then you pick the string below it. So you get that. So this is what I showed you in the beginning here. Just the alternating bass string with the same plucked notes. So when you hit that A minor 7, you just do that. And then you go to the G over B, same thing, pluck the B, pluck the D, or sorry, pick the B, then pick the D. So altogether those 2 chords, then the C. Now when you pluck the next string, we're going to do that same riff. Right, that little hammer on. So this is what it'll sound like all together. You go to that D note, all right? So let's do that again. Hammer, pluck the D, and then play the D chord. You see how it all kind of connects? All right. And then to end it, you do that little lick there. The open G, F sharp, to the G. So all together slowly. All right, back to the A minor. So the difficult part there, really, in my opinion, is the transition back to the A minor cleanly after you do that little riff bit right there, that little lick, okay? So slowly then, we need to do that 3 times before we end this lick. And that, to do it right, takes a lot of practice. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've done this and screwed it up. You know, getting it right, I always feel like I've accomplished something when I can actually do it all the way through. I only learned this song a couple of days ago, so it's really not in my fingers yet, but we'll get there. Alright, so I played it all the way through to the end there. The ending bit is not tricky, but again, it's just a pattern we have to follow. So what I want you to do when you work on this is just build up that initial 3-chord swing. So coming again out of the verse. Okay, 3 times there. So just as we had with the verse, we end on that D before we transition to the C and G chords. And we have that, that lick precedes it. So the end of the chorus goes, now do you recognize something very similar there? Every time we pick either that note or that note, which is an E or a B, there's a single pluck on the D string, on the D note here, on the B string after it. But whenever you're playing the C or the G, it's a double pluck. Okay, so 3 times we do A minor, G over B, C, D, 3 times. Just like the verse, we end on that D each time. Now the 3rd time we have double pluck, hammer, single pluck, C with a double pluck, hammer, single pluck, G, double pluck, open hammer, single pluck, C, double pluck. Right, so always remember that. This finger, double pluck, here and here. This finger, single pluck, here and here. So altogether then, out of that D the 3rd time, one more time. Just got to work it up to speed, all right? Softly, softly, catchy monkey. Go slow at first, and then before you know it, you're flying with this. So that takes us all the way through the hybrid picking part, all right? Now I could sit here and just keep repeating myself over and over, playing it, but ultimately that's not going to help you learn it, all right? You've got everything you need here. You have the tab. There's a downloadable PDF for the tab available below. Just listen, all right? If it helps, get an app on your phone. There's a phone, the one that I use is called Music Speed Changer. I use it on my Android. I have an iPhone too, but I've never tried it on that one. I think it probably works, but it's easier. I don't have to fuck with iTunes on my Samsung, and I can just load up songs and make it real easy. And you can change the speed of the track. So let me just pitch this, not pitch it down, but choose the tempo. I don't know, 60% or so, 64%. Now you can, this might help you, right? So use that if you have to, all right? It's real hard to learn a lot of this stuff when you're learning it at full tempo. So there's also a web version available of the Music Speed Changer. It's all right, but I think it's just a whole lot easier on a phone. And I've got it Bluetooth to the speakers back here, so it works real well for practicing. So that's our hybrid picking section, okay? And putting it all together now, that's your homework. That's your assignment, so to speak. I don't really have much more to say about that, okay? You've got everything you need to do it. So what happens then is the same more or less thing, except it's now picked. Okay, so let's just play through a little bit of the, rather, let's listen to the end of the chorus, the transition into the picking, and then we'll just play it through the picked verse and chorus. All right, guys, so let's do that.
Believe what I see, oh, the truth is stranger than fiction to me. If they made a film out the book I've remembered, not leading me wrong, then it's so long you sit with your popcorn and shotgun, wonder aloud at the point of it all. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction, and I must believe what I see. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction to me.
All right, which takes us to the bridge. So really here, guys, you can probably figure it out what he's doing. So after that ending of the hybrid picked chorus, that's all it is, right? It's the same deal, except now you're picking it. Sometimes it sounds a little bit like he's doing a where he's not really articulating that bit. It sounds more like there's just less happening there. I tend to just do the whole okay, and then of course you've got the and then when you go to the chorus, one shot on that B. Stranger than fiction, and I must believe what I see. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction to me. Which brings us to the bridge. Now, in that chorus part, if you listen, I don't think he's doing that. If he's doing that every time or not, I always do it because I like it. But you could just play it a bit straighter, like stranger than fiction to me. Must believe what I see. Oh, the truth is stranger than fiction. You know, you don't have to do that bit in there if you don't want to. All right, it sounds fine without it. Okay, so he does that whole bit one time. So the second verse and chorus is picked like that. But out of that end of the second chorus, okay, he transitions to E minor for the bridge part. So let's listen to that and play through it, and then we'll talk about it. Okie dokie. So, out of the chorus, which ends on the transition is a simple walk down. to an E minor 7. Now you can hear him doing that sometimes. So the E minor 7 chord you want to play is like this. All right. So there's your E minor. There's a version of an E minor 7. There's another E minor 7. But here we're doing that E minor 7 with both of the third fret fretted here on the E and B strings. And so basically here, you're probably gonna, you can open that up, you can mute it also. It's that chord there, okay? So to a D, to a C, to a G, and then walk down, same thing. Stand the reason and this rhyme is on an A7. Right? So the second time after that C, you go to an A7 chord. And he does that trick. Slide it up there, which is a kind of a modified D chord. You could call that a D sus4 over A if you wanted to, I guess. And then back to the A7. So play it all the way through. This is what it sounds like coming out of the chorus. Alright guys, let's play through that bridge one more time and we should be good to go. Cool, so that's the bridge. The A7 is a secondary dominant here, by the way. It's the dominant 5 chord of D major. So it's just a nice harmonic technique to get us back to D. So the dominant 5 chord of D resolves, to D. So this is like the traditional use of a secondary dominant here where it resolves to its 1 chord, all right? So you might be wondering, how do you get an A7 into G major? Yeah, just a secondary dominant. All right, guys, so the third verse here, what we're gonna do is listen to the little instrumental break before that, and then we're gonna play through that third verse. And yeah, cool, let's check this out. All right, awesome. A lot going on there. So let's talk about it. All right, so out of that bridge, right, we have the usual main lick, right? So you have that, and then we have the, sounds like he's throwing in the third a couple of times on that. Right? And then when the singing starts, he just does the someone told you said they were crazy and laughed in their face. Now after that, he starts the picking bit. Right? So that can be a real challenge after you're just doing this strumming. And then that's what he does there. He plays through it, and on that C, that last C, he stops, and then you hear a little pause, and then you hear the okay? So practice makes perfect, all right? You're going to have to just figure out how to get from those strums to cleanly come back and don't forget on that last bit, he does that, little breathing room, and then now, at the very end of that last chorus, okay, he does something a little different. He busts out an E minor 7, A7 sus4 to A7 bit. So what I want to do here is I want to play you that little funky bit at the very end. So listen carefully. Here. All right, one more time. Here. All right, so on that third time through, then he plays it again. Theme. All right, let's listen to that. Here we go. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed it.